Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, pull out the key insights, and help you get informed efficiently.
That's the goal.
So today we're jumping into Nassim Nicholas Taleb's Fooled by Randomness. You know, the one about chance in markets and life.
Right. And we've also got that SBP research bulletin review to kind of guide us through it.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is to really unpack how randomness, well, how it shapes things, especially in trading. But really, it applies much wider, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about giving you, the listener, a different lens, a way to think about why things happen and maybe make better calls when things are, uncertain.
And Taleb himself, he's quite a character, Lebanese-American essayist, statistician.
Got an MBA from Wharton, a PhD from Paris. Quite the background.
Yeah, and many will know him from his later book, The Black Swan, which really hammered home that idea of unpredictable high-impact events.
Mm-hmm. And what the review highlights for this book, Fooled by Randomness, is that it uses like a narrative style, makes complex stuff feel more like a story.
Right. And the review singles out two big themes we need to tackle. Rare events and just random events in general.
Yeah.
The sheer amount of chance involved.
Okay, so let's dive in there. The book really starts by saying, look, our knowledge is imperfect. We often misunderstand randomness.
Yeah, he uses these stories, right, to show how we constantly try to explain things that are just, well, random.
Exactly. And the review points out we live in environments just packed with random stuff happening, which makes it super hard, especially if you're not a stats expert, to figure out the actual probabilities.
We just aren't built for it, maybe. We see, like, a sequence and immediately think there's a pattern.
That's it. We're pattern-seeking machines. And the book really explores how that gets us into trouble with randomness.
The review mentions that example, right? You see a couple of people get really lucky.
Maybe at investing or something.
And you immediately think, wow, they're geniuses. They have a system.
Instead of thinking, maybe they just got lucky. And then others might follow them down a path that's actually incredibly risky.
That's the core idea, isn't it? Being fooled by randomness. Like seeing faces in the clouds.
Precisely. You're imposing order where there might not be any.
And this ties directly into trading, which is a big focus for Taleb.
Oh, definitely. He argues, look, if you have tons of traders, thousands of them, operating for years.
Statistically, some have to have amazing runs just by pure chance.
Exactly. He calls them the lucky fools. It's like throwing darts randomly eventually. Some will hit the bullseye multiple times in a row.
But they aren't necessarily skilled dart throwers.
Not at all. And the scary part is, they often believe they are skilled. They act like experts, take big risks.
But their success might just be, a statistical blip.
And that makes them incredibly vulnerable, because they're not prepared for those rare events, the hidden risks, when things turn.
They can wipe them out because the luck runs out. It's not a sustainable strategy.
It's like building your house on sand thinking it's bedrock because it hasn't rained heavily yet.
Which brings us neatly to those rare events. The book insists we can't just ignore them because they don't happen often.
Yeah, the low probability, high impact stuff. The review notes the timing of the book's release, right around 9/11.
Eerily relevant. A textbook example of a rare event with absolutely massive, world-changing consequences.
And it highlights our bias, doesn't it? We tend to forget about the possibility of the truly unexpected. We plan based on recent history.
Like the review says, we act like tomorrow's going to be pretty much like today. We don't factor in that bolt from the blue.
It's a kind of collective amnesia about massive disruptions.
Okay, so here's a really crucial point Taleb makes, and the review picks up on it. How we judge decisions.
Right. Usually we look at the outcome. Did it work out? Good decision. Did it fail? Bad decision.
But Taleb says that's completely backward. He argues you have to judge the quality of the decision based on what could have happened. The alternatives.
The alternative histories. His Russian roulette example is brutal but effective.
Explain that one.
Well, imagine someone plays Russian roulette and survives. They walk away rich, maybe. Was that a good decision?
Of course not. The potential downside was catastrophic.
Exactly. The outcome was lucky, but the decision process was terrible because of the other potential outcomes, the ones that didn't happen this time.
And that applies to trading too.
Hugely. You might see a trader take enormous risks and make a fortune. We call them a hero.
But we don't see the underlying risk profile. We don't see the 1,000 other parallel universes where they went bust.
Right. Taleb wants us to consider those hidden risks, those alternative histories. The winners are visible, but the failures often disappear silently.
It's a survivorship bias kind of thing.
Very much so. We only study the survivors, the successful outcomes, and draw the wrong lessons.
So studying these alternative histories, even though they didn't happen, That's valuable. The review mentions Monte Carlo simulations in this context.
Yeah, it's about understanding the range of possibilities. Exploring those what ifs helps you see the real fragility or robustness of a situation or strategy.
It gives you a better feel for the actual risk, not just the outcome you happen to get.
Precisely. It's like stress testing a system. You simulate failures to see how it holds up. You don't wait for the real failure to find out.
Okay. The book also emphasizes how hard it is to predict the really big, significant future events, especially in these random environments.
Yeah, the review mentions 9/11 again and also the 1998 Russian bond market meltdown. Huge shocks. Very few saw them coming.
And the criticism, according to the review, is that the industry like trading doesn't really learn the deep lesson from these events.
Seems so. There's a tendency to, analyze what went wrong in that specific event, but then go back to focusing on past performance figures,
Hmm.
underestimating the potential for the next completely different kind of shock.
It's like preparing for the last war.
Exactly. You get good at spotting risks that look like the last crisis, but you miss the new ones brewing.
Now, the review mentions a term Taleb uses, ergodicity. That sounds
No.
technical. Can you break it down simply?
Okay, let's try. Imagine you flip a coin. If you flip it just a few times, you might get a weird streak, like all heads.
Right.
But if you flip that same coin millions of times, that's time average, the proportion of heads will get very close to 50%. Now imagine you have millions of different people flipping their own coins just once. That's ensemble average. The overall proportion of heads across everyone will also be about 50%.
Okay.
Ergodicity basically means that over a long enough time, the average outcome for one system going through time, like one trader's career, looks the same as the average outcome across many similar systems at one point in time, like all traders in a given year.
I think I get it. So for the lucky fool,
Their luck is like that short streak of heads. It doesn't represent the long-term average. Given enough time under ergodicity, the results should regress towards the average, maybe even below average if they were taking hidden risks.
and the genuinely skilled person who might have had bad luck initially,
Their skill should eventually show through in their long-term average. As the review puts it, skill tends to win out over luck if the system is ergodic and you have enough time. But a big if is whether you survive long enough for the long run to kick in.
right, especially if a rare event takes you out first. Okay, that helps. The review also brings up information overload, noise.
Yes. Taleb is quite critical of the constant barrage of news, market commentary, internet chatter.
The daily noise.
Exactly. The review points out his argument that reacting to all this unfiltered noise as if it's meaningful signal leads to inefficient markets, excessive volatility. Basically, people making bad decisions based on trivia.
So we should ignore the daily market news.
Well, maybe not ignore completely, but Taleb emphasizes using first-hand information, focusing on the bigger picture and distinguishing real signals from that constant, often meaningless noise. Don't trade based on today's headlines.
Got it. And connected to this is another idea the review mentions. Stationarity, the
Yeah.
belief that past patterns just repeat.
Right. Stationarity is the assumption that the underlying rules of the game don't change, that what happened yesterday tells you exactly what might happen tomorrow.
But Taleb argues against that.
He does. He says, look, if patterns were really that predictable and persistent, rational people would adapt to them. And that very adaptation would change the patterns, making the past history irrelevant for predicting the future.
Huh. Okay, that's clever. So history isn't useless, but you can't just extrapolate trends blindly.
Precisely. He suggests learning general lessons from history, like the fact that unprecedented things happen, that systems can break, rather than trying to forecast specific prices or events based on past charts. Learn that storms happen. Don't try to predict the exact wave height next Tuesday.
Makes sense. Understand the nature of the sea, not just the last few waves. The review also touches on Taleb's view of science, a bit critical.
Yeah, he takes aim at what he calls naive empiricism, just looking at data without a strong theoretical or skeptical framework. He also criticizes the pressure to publish in academia, which can lead to finding spurious patterns.
So what's his preferred approach?
He emphasizes falsification using data to disprove claims rather than trying to prove them. It's harder to be fooled that way.
Like his example. You can see data showing the market never fell 20% in a month for 50 years.
But that doesn't prove it can't happen next month. It only proves it hasn't happened yet in your data set. A single counterexample disproves the rule.
A much more cautious way of using data.
Okay, let's look at the book itself through the lens of the review. What are its strengths?
Well, the review definitely praises its ability to explain really complex, potentially dry topics like we discussed, ergodicity, stationarity in an accessible, almost story-like way.
Makes it readable for non-specialists.
Absolutely. And it delivers a really powerful, compelling message about thinking critically about chance, risk, and how we make judgments. It's a call to action, really.
Okay. But the review wasn't all positive, right? What were the criticisms? A couple of main points. One was that Taleb sometimes relies more on invented anecdotes or thought experiments than on hard empirical data to back up his claims about just how dominant randomness is.
So more assertion than demonstration sometimes.
That's the reviewer's take, yes. The other point was about Taleb's tone.
Ah, a bit abrasive.
Yeah, the reviewer felt his style could be quite dismissive, even alienating, towards people who don't see the world his way. A sort of, I'm the only one who really understands probability vibe sometimes.
Okay, so a potentially brilliant message, maybe wrapped in a slightly prickly package for some readers.
That seems to be the gist of the critique.
All right, let's wrap this up. We've gone through fooled by randomness, using the SBP review as a guide. What are the absolute key takeaways for our listener?
I'd say number one, chance plays a massive, often underestimated role in everything, especially markets and careers. Number two, be incredibly wary of mistaking luck for skill in yourself and others. That's the lucky fool trap.
Right, don't get fooled. What else?
Three, you have to account for rare, high-impact events. They happen. Don't ignore them just because they're infrequent. Think about those alternative histories.
Judge the decision, not just the outcome.
Exactly. And finally, number four, be critical of information. Learn to filter out the noise from the signal in this, information-flooded world. Don't just react to headlines.
So the big benefit for you, the listener, is hopefully gaining this framework. A way to see the hidden role of chance and make you less likely to be, well, fooled by randomness yourself.
Absolutely. And maybe it leads to a final thought for you to ponder.
Go on.
Think about areas in your own life, your work, maybe your investments. Where might you be attributing success purely to skill or failure purely to mistakes without really weighing the potential role of luck or simple chance?
What would change if you started looking at those situations through a more probabilistic lens, acknowledging the uncertainty and the role of factors outside your control?
Yeah. How might that change your perspective or even your future decisions? Something to definitely chew on.